Well, Newt Gingrich calling out President Obama for his handling of the riots in Afghanistan in the wake of these Koran burnings, riots that have led to the murder of at least 2 American soldiers.
My hunch is, since the person who killed them is an Afghan soldier, that soldier was being paid with American money, armed with American money, trained with American money. And there is something profoundly wrong when the commander-in-chief refuses to defend the integrity and the lives of the people who serve under him, and instead abjectly crawls to apologize to a country whose religious fanatics. So, does Gingrich have a point? Is he right about the way that the president is handling this crisis we've seen this week in Afghanistan? And in connection with these protests over the reportedly accidental burning of Korans at a U.S. airbase. Angry demonstrators taking to the streets, chanting "Death to America." Just yesterday, 2 U.S. service members were killed in the riots, reportedly by an Afghan army member. We trained them, and now we're told, killing us. President Obama has issued a personal apology to Afghanistan's president, but it has done little to stop the violence as far as the numbers go. And some are now questioning whether President Obama's response was appropriate. Listen here. President Obama surrendered twice today, and I think it deserves to be brought to the country's attention. The president apologized for the burning, but I haven't seen the president demand that the government of Afghanistan apologize for the killing of 2 young Americans. Furthermore, my hunch is, since the person who killed them is an Afghan soldier, that soldier was being paid with American money, armed with American money, trained with American money. And there is something profoundly wrong when the commander-in-chief refuses to defend the integrity and the lives of the people who serve under him, and instead abjectly crawls to apologize to a country whose religious fanatics. There seems to be nothing that radical Islamists can do to get Barack Obama's attention in a negative way, and he is consistently apologizing to people who do not deserve the apology of the President of the United States, period. And candidly, if Hamid Karzai, the president of Afghanistan, doesn't feel like apologizing, then I think we should say goodbye and good luck. We don't need to be here risking our lives and wasting our money on somebody who doesn't care.
Joining me now, Alan Colmes, who's the host of The Alan Colmes Show, and Mike Gallagher, who is a syndicated radio host and a Fox News contributor. So a fired-up Newt Gingrich tapping into an issue that is very sensitive right now. I mean, we've seen 2 American soldiers killed this week, according to the reports, because of this. You know, I mean, the irony, of course, Alan, you can see it, that we trained the Afghan army, and now they turn around and start shooting us. Not because we killed civilians, which we try not to do, but sometimes it happens, but because of the burning of a holy book that they considered more sacred than anything. Were we right to apologize?
Yes, absolutely. And I know, of course, the right wing is going to say, how dare you apologize? I'm glad to see that Newt Gingrich, all of a sudden, no stranger to hyperbole, has become a dove on the war in Afghanistan and saying, well, if Karzai's not going to apologize, we should get out. Karzai's been our ally. We're there fighting on his behalf to help protect his country. So he's not an enemy. He's on our side. The notion that we should not say the right thing to protect our soldiers. This is done for the same reason we have a Geneva Convention, that we don't torture. The reason is his apology to tamp down the outrage is to help preserve the well-being of our soldiers in battle. It may not have worked, but that certainly is the goal, so that you don't further outrage people. We're in a foreign country on their soil, burning, whether by accident or not, their holy book. We should clearly acknowledge that that was a mistake. He did exactly the right thing.
Gingrich seems to be suggesting that the president is an apologist for America in general, Mike.
This is Gingrich at his best, Megan, and this is exactly the kind of tone that the American people expect from a GOP candidate who's going to challenge this apologist president. The bottom line here is that there is not one single apology yet that any of us have heard, Alan included, for the deaths of anyone who is killed by religious fanatics over the burning of a Quran. And that, of course, is the big problem. The challenge is going to be, how do we wrap our brain around the fact that we we are fighting an enemy that literally thinks violence and bloodshed and murder is the justifiable outcome of something like the burning of a holy book. No one is justifying, by the way, the burning of the Quran. Nobody's defending that. I'm certainly not going to. But ultimately, for President Obama to go crawling to Karzai and say, we're sorry that this Quran was burned, where is the apology from the Afghan president? Where is any apology for the death of these Americans? It's outrageous. This is where Gingrich shines, and frankly, from a political standpoint, it's very good timing for him on the verge of the Tuesday primaries, because the American people stand up and cheer for something like this coming out of the mouth of
maybe the
Newt
right wing does. Maybe the right wing does. This is not tit for tat. Oh, we'll only apologize if they apologize. We present ourselves as a moral leader in the world. We present ourselves as a beacon of integrity and a beacon of light. We go by our standards. Our standards are, we don't go into a country and burn the holy book, again, by accident or not, of another culture. And we do the right thing. When we're wrong, we make a mistake and we acknowledge it. It's not dependent upon or attached to whether somebody else on the other side does the concomitant thing.
Was it too soon for the apology,
No,
Mike?
Of course not.
But let me ask you this, because they say that there were reports that the prisoners that we had detained were passing messages to one another in these Qurans, and that's desecration of the Quran is offensive to Islam. But also, there's a question about whether we were doing this as part of a security measure. Hold on, let me ask you about that, Alan, as we wait for Mike.
The metrics or the optics here are and the imagined optics, if you don't actually see the pictures, are that there's a burning of a holy book, regardless of what the predicate is or what might have led up to it, and that the net result is that's what happened. We should not be in the business of burning somebody else's holy book any more than someone should be burning a Bible. And if that happens, whether intentional or not, we should acknowledge it, express regret. That is exactly the right thing to do, with the motivation of hoping that leads to a calmer atmosphere, so our soldiers in harm's way are safer as a result.
But it doesn't. First of all, I just want to tell our viewers that we've lost Mike Gallagher's satellite feed because he's in Greenville, South Carolina, where there's a tornado watch in effect. And so we hope he's okay. And we're trying to reestablish a connection with him. In terms of the debate, that's fortuitous for you, Alan. I want to ask you, though, given how seriously they take the burning of the Quran over there, we understand that. I mean, I mentioned it's not that we killed a civilian, not that our troops ever try to kill civilians in Afghanistan, of course, but obviously in war that can happen. But they take the burning of the Quran even more, like we don't see them go to the streets and do this in the wake of that, but the Quran is a different story. Nonetheless, it doesn't seem like the apologies have tamped it down. I mean, they're still out there chanting death to America.
Well, we couldn't have predicted whether the apologies would tamp down. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. Maybe things would have been worse had there not been an apology. We will never know. That doesn't mean that was not the appropriate measure to take, because as you point out, Megan, the outrage about this kind of an act supersedes so many other things that happen in the course of a war, whether rightly or wrongly. This, therefore, was the right thing to do.
Right. It just doesn't seem like there's any institutional knowledge of all the good our troops have done. We've seen them with kids on the street. It's like they forget all of that because of the actions of a couple. And it does raise the question about whether we are in a position where we should be apologizing to them, or whether that was a strategic move by the president to protect our troops.
Well, sadly, this kind of an act can certainly erase in many people's minds all the good that we do. And therefore, it's important to acknowledge that this was not the right thing for us to have done.
All right, we're going to be joined, but thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. And our apologies to Mike, and hopefully he's okay and the folks in Greenville are okay.
Another day of protest and bloodshed over the burning of Islamic holy books at a U.S.-led military base in Afghanistan. Officials say at least 7 people died in anti-American demonstrations. That's on top of the more than a dozen killed already this week, including 2 U.S. troops, after officials say an Afghan soldier turned on them. President Obama and NATO officials have apologized after troops burned copies of the Quran on Sunday. This after officials tell Fox they found extremist messages written on some of the pages. They've said it was a mistake to send the books to a garbage burn pit, but at the same time acknowledge that somebody made a clear decision to burn the material, and now they're investigating to figure out how it happened. But thousands of Afghans are furious, saying apologies are not enough. They are chanting "Death to America," and as one protester put it, quote, we are ready to sacrifice our heads for the Quran, to give our lives for the sanctity of the holy book. And some of them already have. The Fox Report's chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt live for us in New York. Jonathan, everyone now seems to be appealing for calm.
Yeah, but those appeals are apparently falling on deaf ears, Trace. We're now hearing that the violence has spread from Afghanistan to neighboring Pakistan. Riots breaking out in several Pakistani cities. You can see them there in Peshawar, Pakistan. This after appeals from Afghan President Hamid Karzai for those who are rioting in Afghanistan to go back to their homes and stop the violence. We also heard today from General John Allen. He's the commander of ISAF and U.S. troops in Afghanistan, and he appealed to U.S. troops not to let their anger get the better of them over the killing of those two U.S. troops by an Afghan soldier who was angry about the book burning. Listen to General John Allen.
We're here for our friends. We're here for our partners. We're here for the Afghan people. Now is not the time for revenge. Now is not the time for vengeance. Now is the time to look deep inside your souls, remember your mission, remember your discipline, remember who you are, and come through this together as a unit. Now is that time.
But there is precious little unity right now between the Afghan people, elements of them, and the U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Trace?
You know, Jonathan, when you read the accounts, NATO's language is kind of confusing as to what actually happened. I mean, do we know about the chain of events?
Yeah, the confusion comes when NATO officials say this was inadvertently done and also say a decision was made to do it. What we know from those officials is that the Quran and other materials were in a library in the detention center attached to Bagram Air Base. Those Qurans were being used, written in by detainees to send sometimes extremist messages to each other. That in itself goes against the law of Islam. So because of the security risk, because those Qurans had already been defiled, somebody in NATO took a conscious decision to have those books destroyed. Somebody else then took a conscious decision to burn them. That's where the mistake came, according to NATO officials, but clearly it wasn't inadvertent. It was a conscious decision, but one that was absolutely wrong, according to all the NATO high command, and of course according to President Obama himself, who has now apologized. Trace?
Yeah. The chief Fox Report correspondent Jonathan Hunt live in New York. Jonathan, thank you.